Could you please introduce yourself with your name, major, and year, please?
Yes, my name is Mac Yates. I am a senior marketing major.
Great.
I'm Nick Lauer. I'm a marketing major. I'm a senior.
I am Ben Caponeri. I am a senior accounting major.
Who would you say the most well-known painter in history is?
First name comes to mind is Picasso.
Which of these artists of these two pictures, either the First Communion or the Three Musicians, do you think is the best?
I think the First Communion is the best.
Why did you pick that artist?
I picked that artist because I think it's very well detailed, almost looks lifelike, and I personally like those kinds of paintings over the abstract paintings like the one on the right.
Who would you say the most well-known painter in history is?
Picasso.
When looking at these two pictures, who do you think the better artist is? The one that made the First Communion or the Three Musicians?
First Communion.
Why did you pick that artist?
There's a lot of great detail. Yeah, it's like a water pastel painting.
Who would you say the most well-known painter in history is?
Picasso.
Of those two pictures in front of you, who do you think the better artist is? The one who painted the First Communion or the Three Musicians?
I think that depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a very literal, specific, accurate depiction, I'd say the one on the left of the First Communion, but maybe the one on the right's a little bit more creative.
So, personally,
Personally,
who do you like?
the one on the left. I'm an accounting major. I don't like creativity.
Okay. So why did you pick this artist?
I feel like that requires maybe a little less imagination to depict, but probably a little bit more skill. I respect the skill.
Do you think fame is a qualifier for good art?
I think if you're famous that you've made good art, it helps like your next works of art and stuff like that because you have that fame.
Do you know why representation is often seen as better than abstraction?
Why representation is often seen because I think it's more meaningful than abstraction.
Do you think fame is a qualifier for good art? In other words, do you think being more famous helps you be considered a better artist?
Yes.
Do you know why representation is often seen as better than abstraction?
No.
Do you think fame is a qualifier for good art?
Yes.
Do you know why representation is often seen as better than abstraction?
I don't know what that means.
No problem.
Representation being the one, so this one's abstract, the Three Musicians, and the other one's representation.
Yep.
And the question was why one is said to be better.
Yeah.
I would say what I said earlier. I mean, I feel like I could, maybe if I had the imagination and the name recognition, I could do the one on the right or something similar to it. But the one on the left definitely is not something you can just roll over and do without some talent and probably some classical training.
What would you say your experience with art is?
I love to look at art. I don't really buy it or anything like that. I like to do it sometimes. I did art in high school, but other than that, I don't make it like a hobby or anything like that.
So you would say you enjoy art?
I do enjoy art.
What would you say your experience with art is?
I took painting classes when I was in like 3rd and 4th grade.
Would you say you enjoy art?
No.
What would you say your experience with art is?
I actually work at at my father's company, which is a corporate art consulting company. So I've seen probably a little bit more of the thing on the left, but not to say that being the literal one rather than the abstract. But I've definitely seen a lot of both, and it just depends on somebody's taste and what they're looking for and what requirements they're trying to fulfill.
And you mentioned earlier you think the most famous painter in history is Pablo Picasso. Do you know anything about him?
I know that he paints abstract art. I don't personally like his art. That's just me. Other than that, I know he's European, but he was very famous for his art. So,
what if I told you both of these paintings are by Pablo Picasso? Does your perception of the paintings change?
I'd be surprised that he did the one on the left. I know he did the one. I'm pretty sure that's one of his on the right, but I don't know that he did the one on the left.
So you mentioned the most famous artist in history is probably Pablo Picasso. Do you know anything about him?
Does he have one ear?
What if I told you both of these paintings are by Pablo Picasso? Does your perception of the paintings change?
No.
So you said earlier you know who Pablo Picasso is. Do you know anything about him?
Picasso was, I don't know if he was French, but I think he did a lot of his stuff in France. I think maybe he did some abstract-ish stuff. Maybe not quite as abstract as that one, but I could be wrong. There was something else. I think he had an extramarital affair with somebody who was like half his age or something. Or not from a movie. Yeah, that's about all I got on.
So
besides name recognition.
So what if I told you both of these paintings are by Pablo Picasso?
Really?
Does your perception of these paintings change?
I don't believe it, but yeah, I mean, I would be impressed if you told me that these were both by the same artist, regardless of whether or not they're Picasso, just because they're so different.